Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another video series of Getting to Meet the Right People. And boy, do I have a right person that you need to meet today. Let's welcome Brenda Aveyard. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Ruth. Hi, everyone.
Gosh, it's so great to see you. I know we're doing this because we want a video recording of it, but I'd much rather just be talking to you in person. So, I'm just putting that out there.
We got to do that just a few weeks ago.
We're getting back. Yeah,
it's going to keep happening, Ruth.
Yeah, can't come soon enough.
It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new way. That's all I can say.
Isn't that a song?
It kind of makes you want to sing it.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, so one of the reasons that I wanted to do this interview with you is because you are a very successful entrepreneur. And so that's where I kind of want to start with you is tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. When did you start? What did you do? How did you get into it? And then we'll talk about a little bit about some leadership and some tips that you have about becoming an entrepreneur and being your own leader. So let's start with, so how did you become an entrepreneur?
Well, Ruth, I think it all started when I was in the 5th grade. We sold redbud trees for the school. Now, I don't know what they did with the money. I don't think the redbud trees ever bloomed because we had some every year. But in the 5th grade, they said the person who sold the most redbud trees would win a red transistor radio. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted my own transistor radio because my father had one. And for those of you out there who are young, you may not know what a transistor radio is, because one day I was speaking and there were 4 young women sitting at the front table and they were like, a deer in headlight. A transistor radio is just like an iPod, only it plays only radio, and it only played AM radio. So, but you remember them, don't you, Ruth?
You know what comes to mind, I had a transistor radio. It wasn't red, but what I remember most about it is our house got broken into and it got stolen.
Oh, no.
Yes, I think go ahead.
My red transistor radio, I have a box in the attic. I haven't looked in it for probably 10 years, but it says high school memories, and it has all my stuff from school. And someday I need to get up there and just go through and look at it. But over the years, it just gets fuller and fuller and fuller. That's another show, Ruth.
Yeah, that is another show for sure. Yeah. Okay, so you started in the 5th grade selling redbud trees. That was the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yes, and guess what? I won the red transistor radio.
Well, of course you did.
And now that I look back on it, I think I didn't know this at the time because I was in the 5th grade. I was just like surviving. I just wanted the radio. It didn't, all stops were out. That's kind of who I am. And I got my dad to sell at his work, and I got my aunt who worked to sell, and I got my mom to walk with me house to house. And I didn't know it then, but I know it when I look back. I learned that you can't do everything by yourself. You have to build a team.
So that's one of our first big clues, isn't it? Because I think when entrepreneurs start their entrepreneurial journey, they think that they have to do everything for themselves and by themselves.
Yes, they do. They do. And you can't do it all. You can start by yourself, but you have to figure out a way. And that's what I help my clients with, because I'm a sales and business coach. I help them find the way to go to the next level by recruiting what they need to help them grow. But back to my entrepreneurial journey. Then later in my life, like when I was 16, I worked for Sears. And they had in the toy department, and we sold gerbils and not redbud trees, gerbils and parakeets. And I knew how to talk to parakeets because I had them as pets. So I talked to them in budgie. They go up and down like that. So I knew exactly how to communicate with them. And I would just put my hand up in the back while I had their attention, grab them, put them in the little box and say, Mary, what are you going to name your new baby? And that was another learning experience that I didn't know. I always like to be a little bit different. And when you know how to do something that other people are afraid to do, or other people don't want to do, like catch a bird, then you feel important. And when you feel important, you act important and people respect you. And a big thing for me was I was 16 years old and I'd go on break to have a snack or eat my lunch my mom packed, and I would hear over the intercom of the whole store, Brenda Spicer to the pet department, please. Brenda Spicer to the pet department. And that made me feel really confident because I could do something. And besides that, I knew a parakeet was getting a new home. So everything was good because you and I are animal lovers. So that's my childhood entrepreneurship. But this afternoon, after I got a little bit older, I managed a dental practice where I learned how to run a business because the dentist I worked for didn't really like any part of the business stuff. He liked the doctoring. So I learned how to run a business. My first entrepreneur journey was a tanning center because I was going on a cruise and I read an article that you could get a suntan in 2 weeks. And that first time in a swimming suit on the cruise, especially when I was young enough that I still look good in a swimming suit, I could even wear a two-piece. But it was something I did. And when I came back, I drove to the other side of town, which at that time in my life seemed like a road trip. But I asked the lady if she would help me open one north of town. So she gave me vendor information, kind of walked me through it. I think that's where I got the feeling that I always want to pay back, because my first entrepreneurial journey was really from a gracious woman who taught me how to do her business and didn't look at me as a competitor, looked at me as a woman supporting a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then I owned a business at Kings Island, which was called Soundtracks Recording Studio, across from the Twin Racer. I had that for 7 years. And that was by far one of my greatest challenges to get started, and one of my greatest successes, because I then sold the business. I sold it to Bill Stokely of the Stokely Van Camp Company. And it was real that I had to negotiate with a multimillionaire. So just figure that out. And I took my dog with me for the closing because he wanted me to come early. And I said, my dog's in the car with me. And if I go over to, where you are, I can't get to where I am to drop him off. So his secretary said I was the first person that ever brought a dog into his office, and especially into the boardroom because it was hot. But that's another story. But I'm telling you, entrepreneurship is a wonderful journey, but it's filled with challenges as you go. Like, you won't be able to do that. Well, what if I did? Well, you won't be able to do that. I know it came from the franchisor. And I am like, well, what if I did? Well, if you did, I would sell you the first franchise. So it's perseverance. You have to be consistent and persistent in everything that you do. And so that's a writer down, or if you're taking notes from today, persistent and consistent. That's what gets you where you want to be in the end. And that's what really matters, isn't it?
Yes. So very much. So when did you actually venture into opening your coaching business?
That's a good question, because a lot of you out there may be aspiring entrepreneurs, but you don't want to take that first step. You don't know why, you're afraid. I knew I wanted to be a coach, because what I did after I sold Kings Island, I became a sales director for Mary Kay in record time. And then I went into corporate for several years. And I traveled all around the United States. And what I did was train in sales and consult franchise owners. So it was time for me to retire. My company went out of business during the recession in 2008. And I wanted to make that break then. But I have to say, and some of you feel the same way, I worked for insurance because I was afraid to start my business, risk the savings I had at that time in my life in order to become an entrepreneur. So I basically worked for insurance. And I got through 6.5 years of that. And as soon as I retired, I became a coach. But interesting, I didn't understand what coaching was. I just know that my job was developing leaders, and I was developing people to go to the next level in the company and training. So I went to school when it was retirement time. I went to school to be a coach because I didn't understand exactly what coaching was, but I knew I wanted to continue supporting people in their journey. So I became a life coach, and that was all great. My first coach that I had, I've always had a coach. I think people need a coach. You've done coaching work, and you know what I mean? It's having someone that believes in you until you believe in yourself, kind of, and keeps you accountable. Because I can go squirrel, 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 and I have to be reined in because we're creatives when we're entrepreneurs. You know that, you've been one your whole life almost. But it's just the things that you do to become an entrepreneur. I think you have to be kind of daring. You have to be able to step out and stand up for yourself. You have to, I guess what you have to do is you have to own your power, because we all have power within us, but we don't express it. And that's usually because of some type of fear that someone else has instilled in us during our life. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a sibling, an aunt, maybe it was a school teacher that said, don't you talk, don't you daydream, you're here to learn, pay attention to me. But I knew I wanted to be a coach. And back to the subject, see, squirrel, 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 squirrel. Back to the subject, I didn't know what kind of coach. I just wanted to help women. That's it. Mm. And life coaching was really good for me. And my first coach, that's where I was. My first coach asked me, why did you become a life coach instead of a business coach? I said, well, I don't know. Because I looked at a lot of different coaching programs. I said, I don't know. She said, I want you to think about that, and I want you to come back tomorrow and tell me. And I said, okay. It was at a conference. And so I went back and I thought about it. My best friend was there with me. And I said, why did I become a life coach? She says, I don't either. But, after I thought about it, Ruth, I became a life coach because I was under a lot of stress in corporate. It was different. I knew what it was like to be an entrepreneur and own my own business, and that's what I wanted to do. So basically, I just flipped it around, and I needed life coaching myself. And that's why I hired a life coach. She was a spiritual life coach. I needed to own my own power to step out and do what I was doing. And a lot of that comes with your confidence, your spirituality, and all of those things that came into my certification for life coaching. I hired her, and within 6 months, I had transitioned into business coaching because I had over 40 years of experience in sales and running businesses and being an entrepreneur. So training. So I know what it feels like when you're an entrepreneur and you wake up in the middle of the night and my best friend's mother used to say jerky and nervous, because you have something on your mind, and that normally comes down to your business, and it normally always comes down to money in your business if you take it the full route. So I teach people how to make more money in their business. But one thing I work with my people on also is, I know leadership is one of your great interests, and you like to share leadership information with people. And I'm going to read you, I just Googled leadership, what the definition says. Who knows where it's from? There's a million places, but it says leadership is the ability of an individual or a group of individuals to influence and guide followers or other members of an organization. And you know what that made me think of, Ruth? The big term right now, especially online, is influencers. Who do you know that's an influencer? Who influences people? What you're actually saying from that definition, I never really put the two together. Who are the leaders? Who are the leaders who can communicate and grow networks and grow businesses? Who are the leaders? Those are the influencers. So now when somebody says she's an influencer, she's really a leader, I think. because leadership involves a lot more than being a manager or a supervisor or being an executive, because you can manage, you can supervise, you can be the decision maker, but if you don't have leadership skills, if you can't lead and no one follows you, you're never going to get to those levels.
Mhm. And Brenda, I think that sometimes starting out as an entrepreneur, who are we leading? We're leading ourselves. I mean, we probably don't have a staff yet, or we don't have, people that are necessarily paying attention to us. But the bottom line is you have to learn to lead yourself as a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, so that you do gain business, you do gain followers, you become an influencer because you know how to lead. I think those two things are so closely entwined. And what a lot of people are doing that I see right now is they're aiming straight for, I want to be an influencer. They're not going through the steps of how do I become an effective self-leader in order to get to be an influencer. So they're kind of inverting that, trying to do the cart before the horse kind of thing.
It's so funny that you say that, because I typed up some things. I spent some time thinking about our conversation today. So I'm going to give you some interpretations of mine. Everything is our point of view and our perspective on different things that constitute being a leader. And what stops people many times is confidence. Confidence is the stop sign. I can't do this. Everybody says I can't. I don't have this degree. I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have this. You have it all. You just haven't owned your power. But different ways that we lead as entrepreneurs is we lead by example. We walk our talk. We lead by our example. If we say something, we do it. So that is a great leadership skill. We also lead with ideas. When we're participating in a group discussion, or we're at a networking group and we want to meet people, we lead with ideas. When we lead, so everybody's really quiet, and you've done this before, I know, Ruth, many times, and I've done it too, nobody wants to respond to the speaker, and then all of a sudden one person says something. It could be me. I have a tendency to say what I think. So, but when one person speaks, it gives other people the opportunity not to be the first. You can resonate with that, can't you? Other
Right.
people get into the conversation. No one wants to be the first, because what if what they said isn't socially acceptable to everybody else, or nobody wants to do that. Right. So a leader will lead with an idea. They take risks, they step out. A leader leads with facts. A leader knows what they're talking about. And a leader leads with results, whether it's their results, or like you and I in coaching and influencing, we help people get the results that give them the confidence to go to the next level. Do you agree?
Right. Absolutely.
We also lead by listening. Leaders are very good listeners, and leaders are builders of people. Well, let me just tell it to you. I can make this real simple. I probably hired over 1,000 people when I worked for the weight loss company that I traveled all over North America. I probably hired 3,000 people. I don't know. But one question I asked in every interview was, I don't care about their names or their company, but who was your best boss and why? And who was your worst boss and why? And 95% of the time, the person that was the best boss was the leader. It was the person that listened. It was the person that built them up. It was the person that gave them permission to take a step without total supervision, gave them an opportunity to be independent in their position. those are the people like. 95%, the boss that they did not like, and I asked this question a lot, was the micromanager, because the micromanager is the boss. The leader is the developer. Have you thought of it that way? I mean, I didn't make this up. I heard this from so many people. So, it's, I strive to be a leader in my community. I strive to be a leader in my business. I strive to be a leader with my family and with my friends. But there's a lot of responsibility to that, because if you are a strong leader, then you have to lead also with empathy, because you have to understand other people's positions and you have to respect them. A leader will humble themselves and they will listen and they will open their mind to something that's different, maybe different than the norm. They have to lead with integrity and they have to lead with compassion. So those were the things that I came up that I felt related to leadership, that your audience could relate to, whether they're in corporate, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're in direct, if they're own their own business of coaching, or they own their own business of direct sales, or they own their own business of brick and mortar. So I think those things are just basic things from my perspective that constitute a leader. What did I miss, Ruth?
I don't think you missed anything. I was taking notes as you were talking, because I feel there are so many wise words and wise scenarios that you created that, maybe one or two words will resonate with different people. And, one of the first things you talked about was self-confidence. And I don't know about you, Brenda, but when I have worked with entrepreneurs, and, I like working with brand new entrepreneurs that are just starting their journey. One of the things that I've noticed, a high percentage really, they want to do whatever it is that they're entrepreneuring, whether they want to, be a coach, they want to be a speaker, whatever it is, they really want that thing, but they lack self-confidence to get themselves to that thing. And I always think, and I sometimes will say, well, what do you think what is self-confidence? I mean, explain that. And people sometimes have a hard time with that. They can say, oh, I'm very self-confident. I've been a manager for years, but I've worked for somebody else. It's like I worked for somebody.
Altogether a different ballgame, isn't it, when you own your own business?
It is. And I think that's a tough transition for some, because they felt so good inside themselves when they worked for somebody and they had self-confidence, but somehow that doesn't always translate into being your own boss, managing yourself, being your own leader. That's where it's like a big plateau of self-confidence. And then all of a sudden you just drop off, it's like the big drop off down, and you go, well, where did my self-confidence go? And they can't answer that.
Yeah. And it's usually there are triggers that can take our self-confidence away. And, you and we both have that all through our careers. All of a sudden, everything's going great. And all of a sudden something triggers and we aren't thinking the same way that we thought. And we have to sit back and take our power back. Right. It's really hard, because when you sell somebody else, okay, and when I say sell, I don't mean necessarily selling a product or a service, but when you represent something else, such as a company, it's that. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's this. And when you have to sell yourself, your aptitude, your abilities, the things that you have known, and show and teach and lead people into the next level in their business, you have to be confident. And you have to recognize, and this is another thing, they have a really hard challenge with sales until they get over the confidence thing.
Mhm.
Because if you aren't confident in your ability to represent yourself or your product, you're not going to be able to sell it, because people have a conception of sales which is totally false, because selling isn't telling, selling is serving. And it's hard to get there because the fear that's put with sales. So yes, I think confidence is very much, and you had a great point about new entrepreneurs. And I was that way when I was a new entrepreneur too. And I was probably just young and didn't know any better than to just stand up there and say, I want to do this. But it is an issue. It's an issue forever. But as you get more accustomed to being an entrepreneur, you know the triggers and you snap right back out of it. But it's a human thing.
Right, absolutely. And I think with each product or service that you're selling, you're gaining confidence.
You are.
Because you see yourself in action. It's almost like taking a moving picture of yourself outside yourself. You're kind of watching yourself from a distance and afar, and you kind of think, wow, I did that. I sold that service, or I sold that product. So that then that's like putting money in the bank towards your confidence. It's like cha-ching, like, oh, I got a win there. And I think we have to go through a number of those confidence builders before it becomes second nature to us. I think it's sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but it's a part of the process of being a successful entrepreneur and a successful leader in your business.
Yeah, it's kind of like Brenda Spicer to the toy department, please. And I knew the parakeet found a home, but it made me feel confident. I can remember that feeling, Ruth, so.
Yeah. What was your parakeet's name?
I had Chipper. I had Pickles. I had Sammy. I had, what was, my green one was named Pickles. The other ones were all blue. Pickles, Chipper, Sammy, and I can't remember the other one's name.
Wow, you had 4.
Yeah, my mother wouldn't let me have a dog or a cat in the house. She didn't want animals in the house, sleeping there and everything. But what damage could a bird do in a cage? But she weakened, because when I became an adult, my mom and dad bought me a dog, and all the barriers that were up there about having a pet in the house disappeared when they learned the love of a dog. And when I would go away or travel, little Shawnee, my first dog, would stay with my mom and dad and sleep in the bed and all that stuff. So let me tell you something. Everything that we say we'll never do, we many times end up doing.
Right.
And now my dogs aren't my dogs. Now my dogs are her grand dogs. So she's 9. Yeah. They're her grandchildren, so they're grand dogs.
Right. Yeah. Be careful of what you say, because you might surely get it. It's like, oh, no pets allowed in the house. And then you wind up like loving, having pet dogs and cat companions. So
kind of like Ruth Medlin, when she buy a puppy not long ago, and she came home with 2.
Yes. Well, I firmly believe that all dogs are pack animals. They thrive best in a pack. And so when the opportunity presented itself, like, well, I need to create my own pack. One dog is not a pack. So the opportunity presented itself. So I wound up with sisters, and they formed their little pack. So yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 also. I got a text from a friend in Florida this morning. And it says, two old guys who were always hanging out together. It was her two, she has two Bichons like I do, and one was on each end of a napkin on the couch. I sent one back to her. It says, I've got two of the same thing. And it was both of them sleeping together in one dog bed. They do everything together. They do need a pack.
Right. Yes, they do
And
everything
two,
together.
two are really no more trouble than one.
Right.
Once when I fell in love with Sammy, and I already had two, and I got Sammy, I had three for probably a year and a half. Just let me say this much, and I won't say anything else about that. 3 dogs, 2 hands, 2 arms. Just think about it. I don't think I'll do 3 at one time again unless I fall in love.
Yes. Well, there is always that, I think some of my fondest memories, because I always did have pets. I always had dogs and cats, even as a child. So some of my fondest memories are bringing a new pet into the fold, like you bring in a new kitten, or you bring in a new puppy or whatever, and you watch the assimilation of the animals that are already in your pack, and they, how they greet the new pet. So yeah.
Look at us. We're just in our element. We've gone from entrepreneurship to leadership to dogs. And we've gone to the dogs, Ruth.
Well, I can't think of a better place to be than to go with the dogs. I'll tell you that. So Brenda, just before we close today, tell everybody how they can get in contact with you if what you've said today resonates with somebody and they want to have a conversation with you. What should they do? How do they reach you?
Well, one of the best ways is just go to agiftfrombrenda.com. Very easy. agiftfrombrenda.com. BRENDA is how you spell my name. And you'll receive a white paper from me, and it will tell you about the 8 mistakes most entrepreneurs make and how to avoid those. Okay. And that will get you started with me, and you'll have an opportunity to schedule a call with me if you would like. I'm always open to that. And I make a lot of friends that way. So, make new friends, keep the old, one is silver and the other's gold. And I think that we can just end on that, because Ruth and I are kind of on the verge of whether we're silver or gold to each other, because it's been a while now.
Yeah, I love that phrase. It really, it resonates, I think. So
yeah, that was from childhood days.
So
Ruth.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for all your encouragement, your wisdom, and your solid information. I think sometimes, sometimes people love to just hear the sound of their own voice just to be talking, but your information and your wisdom, I think, just speak volumes. So I just really appreciate you coming on our program today and all the good stuff that you've put out there for our audience to think about.
Well, thank you so much. I'll tell you, I'll make a commitment right here on your show. I'm going to start doing videos again. So, I did them for a while. I took a challenge. Do we have just one more minute?
Oh, yes, we're fine.
Here's a lesson in this. I took a challenge. This is a leadership, a confidence, and everything example story. I took a challenge to do 100 videos in a row every day for 100 days to do 100 videos. I took that challenge last year, and there's 37 videos on my page in the history, because I did a video every day for 37 days.
Wow.
Now, I had a choice to look at that in one of 2 ways. Was that a failure that I didn't make it for 100 days, or was that a success? You know what? This is what happens to entrepreneurs. It was really a success. How many of you have ever done 37 videos? It takes you putting out there everything you know and sharing it with people. That's what entrepreneurs do. I just got tired. Mm-hmm. And because I had to get up and put makeup on every day and look professional and do all that, But I'm going to tell you, many, many times the things that entrepreneurs think are failures are really great successes, because I had never done and given content and information to people for 37 days in a row. So it was a huge success, even though from some people's point of view, it may have been a failure, but you need to look at your own point of view and make your own decision and how your decisions affect you,
Mhm.
because it was a game changer for me. So I'm going back to videos, probably starting the week after next. I've got 37 things up there I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to do it every day for 37 days. I'm going to do it once a week. And I think the best way is getting it prepared. I have 37 ideas of things I'm going to talk about. So I only need 47. I need 15 more and my whole year will be finished. So making your plan, working your plan, and recognizing your successes in what some people may call failures, because we don't celebrate the small things. And that's where a lot of your power comes for you.
Mhm. Well, I think that we can look at the glass half empty and say, I wish that I could have filled it up. Or we can look at the glass half full and say, look at all the content that I provided. So talk about self-confidence. You know, if you constantly look at everything as something's missing, half empty, half empty, half empty, well, your confidence level is just going to go down, down, down. But if you look at it half full, half full, half full, half full, then your confidence level is raising back up. And after all, as an entrepreneur, don't you get to decide what's a success and what's a failure?
That's the
You
exact
do.
point. Ruth. That's the exact point. That's another example of owning your own power.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely. If somebody else wants to call it a failure, that's their problem, but I'm calling it a success. So,
You know, I
yeah.
tell my clients, everything you do when you're finished with it, look at it. What did I do good? What could I do better the next time? And what will I never say or do again? Because we all make mistakes. We all say stupid things sometimes. You know, I mean, I've said things, I'm like, why did I say that? I probably said a couple of them today. But, you know, it's making our own self-evaluation and making it truly about ourselves, because when it boils down to it, it doesn't really, other people can't control how we control our happy.
Right.
And that's confidence, and that's leadership, and that's everything that Ruth is bringing to you with these speakers.
And that's our narrative, you know, it's not anybody else's narrative. I always think about that as an entrepreneur is, you know, I'm controlling my narrative. If you don't like my narrative, you don't have to watch. You don't have to read my stuff. That's fine with me, because somebody else out there is watching and reading my stuff. So, you know, you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And once people understand that, it's like, I'm not performing for you, I'm performing for me. And you can take me or you can leave me. Either way, it's going to work out for me, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's the old 80-10 principle. You can please 80% of the people all the time, 10% of the people part of the time, and 10% of them, you can't please them. So, you know, don't let them help you not believe in your own self or affect your happy, because there's just a small people who don't always seem the same.
Right. And, you know, move on. I always think, don't worry about the people who don't like you. Move on. It doesn't matter.
Which makes me think of another thing, and that is an entrepreneur cannot be afraid of being judged by other people, because that stops a lot of people. They think, well, what would everybody think if I did this? What would people think if I said this? Oh my gosh, what would people think? Part of being an entrepreneur is being brave, and being brave doesn't mean that you don't respect other people's opinions, but it means that their point of view can be different than yours. and you like yours, so you're going to stay and be genuine in the person that you are. And you will always win by being genuine, always.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know what? We could probably go on and wax poetic for days, but
I know. Two blondes who love to talk together and just watch what happens.
you know what? We're going to have you on again. You know what? We'll set up a date for maybe next spring where we can continue our conversation, because you've just got so much great content and stuff, and you're a confidence builder. You're not a terror downer. You're a builder. So
Yeah.
I'm sure our audience is going to enjoy our conversation, and they'll be looking for much more.
Yeah. Will they be able to write comments when they see this?
Yes.
Tell me what you thought. What was one thing you got out of it?
Okay. Well, you should be able to see this. Yeah, you will be able to see when it gets posted. You'll be able to see it, so you can monitor your own what people are saying. Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me, everybody. Just talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Tell
what
me
we
what
do.
you, tell me what you're thinking.
Talk about everything. But that's how we grow. We learn what people like, what people love, what people have, questions about and everything. So
Right. Yeah.
that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you again. And we'll look forward to our next conversation next spring.
Okay. And I hope to see you face to face before then.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Ruth. And thank you, everyone, for your time, because your time is money. And we appreciate that, don't we?
Right. Everybody, see you soon.